So today we're introducing a great new product. We're very excited about it. FileCatalyst TransferAgent. The product was actually posted on our download site yesterday afternoon, so anybody can now go and grab it and start playing with it. So we're very excited about it, and this webinar, today's webinar, is going to be really to cover all the major features and our goals that we wanted to achieve through this new product. We're very excited. This is a brand new product since, I think, the release of Central. So without any further delay, let's get to it. So I'm John Tkachevsky. I'm the president of Unlimited Tech Software, the makers of FileCatalyst. And today I have with me Greg Pettit. Hello, Greg.
Hi, everybody.
Greg is one of the main developers on the TransferAgent, and he'll be walking us through the demo. If Greg actually already posted some interesting articles on the TransferAgent in the last couple of months, so if you go to our blog, you can read his articles. So just to get started, before we get to the TransferAgent, we just wanted to talk about a little bit of our history on the plugins and web components we've been building. So our first web-based file transfer component was a Java applet. It was built in 2000. In 2007, we augmented that applet with UDP acceleration. So basically now you can users can transfer files at line speed through the browser. And now we're launching, in 2014, we're launching the TransferAgent. The reason behind it is really these two spots here in the history line. One was in 2004 when Microsoft dropped support for J++, or their native Java for Windows, in favor of using Sun. That created confusion on the marketplace for the end users, what plugin to use, which Java version, and all that stuff. Since then, Windows probably got much more stable, and we haven't had any recent issues with Java applets on Windows. But anyways, that was one problem. But the major problem that came up was in 2010, when Apple also stopped developing their native Java and moved in favor of just using the regular Sun Java plugin. This whole problem was also, augmented by the fact that Oracle acquired Sun Microsystems at the same time. So I think there's quite a bit of confusion on who is running, the Java plugin on the applet in the browser on the Mac, and so on. So since then, things have stabilized on Mac. But once again, every time there's a big shift like that, we as a vendor of file transfer solutions on the web, we were always had to provide workarounds and find other ways to work around these big major shifts in who's supporting what on the major platforms on the market today. So now in 2014, we released TransferAgent to kind of work around all these problems that the Java plugin. What I want to be clear here, it's not that Java as the programming language or the platform has been dropped or has been dropped, but rather just the Java plugin, the actual plugin that runs the Java applets in the web browser. That's the issue, that's the component that has been having a lot of problems lately. So just for those who, by the way, if you have any questions during my webinar, please type them into the GoToWebinar questions, and at the end we'll have a portion of the webinar dedicated to answering any questions. So just before I get into the details on the TransferAgents, for those who'd never dealt with our acceleration or UDP acceleration, in just a quick slide to give you up to date how this works. So instead of using TCP to transfer files, we actually use UDP, and we're able to send data continuously through the pipe. So as we're sending the data, we're not waiting for any acknowledgments. TCP, on the other hand, will wait for an acknowledgement. So every time it sends a little bit of chunk of data, it has to wait for an acknowledgement before it sends the next chunk of data. And this creates a problem on latency when you have networks of latency. So if you're on the internet today and you want to transfer a file from New York to LA, for example, using the public internet, you'll be looking at at least 50 to 100 milliseconds latency. and that will slow down your FTP transfers quite a bit. It might take you 2.5 hours to send a 10 gig file. With FileCatalyst acceleration, the same file transfer will take 14 minutes. So this is based on a 100 megabit line. And here's another example, a little further, LA to London. Now your latency is much, much higher. Now you have an RTT here of 250. FTP takes 12 hours and 15 minutes. FileCatalyst takes still 14 minutes. So as you can see, we're immune to the delay on the line. And of course, FileCatalyst TransferAgent uses all this technology underneath. It's not, the user doesn't know about it, but it's all being used at that time. So what were our goals? So we started the development in February this year of the TransferAgent. We started off with a prototype in November 2013, just to see what was possible and what technologies we can use. And then we really started developing in February, and we just launched it yesterday. So the product has been in development for quite some time, and we feel at this stage it's quite mature and ready for our customers to actually try and develop with it. So another thing, as I mentioned before on the timeline, we didn't want to have any dependency on the Java plugin for the new TransferAgent, and that was one of the main goals. Another thing we wanted to keep in mind, that we want something very lightweight. We didn't want to have an installer of 300 megs to download to run a web-based file transfer. So we wanted to keep something pretty lightweight. Actually, we managed to fit everything in our installer under, I think, 15 megs, Greg, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we're pretty happy about that, and we wanted to make sure that the install only occurred when it's needed. So there's no need to install anything ahead of time. User can just browse to the web page wherever they need to transfer files, and then they are going to be prompted. So it's called an inline install. We wanted to also build something that is fairly good with security. As you remember, Java Applets had some security issues, so we didn't want to hit that ahead of time. So we added things like PGP encryption, for example, for our parameters. We have user prompts to allow users to either allow or deny certain actions in the web browsers. And users can also hide certain parts of their local file system from the web as well. So these are the features we wanted to add. We wanted to support, uploads, downloads within transfer queue. So imagine a user adds a file and then clicks upload to start uploading or downloading from the queue. And a big one also for us, a big goal was to make sure something that is technology neutral. So we wanted as much as possible just to use native HTML. We didn't want to rely on JSP, PHP, ASP, or anything like that, because our customers are all over the map with that. Somebody is using Cold Fusion, another person will be using JSP. So we elected just to do everything with static HTML pages, which was also a challenge. The only requirement, of course, is to have our FileCatalyst direct server, which can, where the TransferAgent connects and can either upload or download files to. And email notifications was another thing that we wanted to build in right from the get-go. So we will be showing a demo. I'm just putting a screenshot because this PowerPoint will be eventually posted on our website as well. So if somebody ever needs to see how the TransferAgent looks like, well, this is a quick screenshot. So now now let's get to the demo. Okay. So the first things first, you need a web server, somewhere to run it. In my case here, I'm already started my Tomcat. So I'm running Tomcat as a web server, but you can run any web server. You can run IIS, you can run Apache, you can run Tomcat, whatever you want. But you need the web server. You, of course, also need a FileCatalyst server up and running. In my case here, I have the FileCatalyst server already up and running and ready to go. And besides that, you need the FileCatalyst TransferAgent deployment package. So it's a zip file that you will download from our website, from our download site, and it will come just basically like a zip file. The zip file contains really one folder called FileCatalyst. In this folder, you need to publish to the web. So publish on your web server somewhere. So in this case here, I'm going to just open this up with my 7-zip. And I'm going to extract these files to the root of my web server. So here's my root for Tomcat. And now I'm technically already deployed. I already deployed FileCatalyst TransferAgent. So if I open up my web browser now, once again, this works in Firefox, Chrome, Safari, and all the major browsers, and Internet Explorer, of course. So if I go to localhost now, so here's my welcome page for Tomcat, telling me that my Tomcat is successfully installed and running. And now if I want to go to the transfer agent, all I have to do is just type in /FileCatalyst as just like it came in the zip file. So this is the starting page for it. Of course, when you're deploying this and running in production, you're not going to put this up because this page really just teaches you how to use TransferAgent. You will have your customers going directly to certain functionality. For example, you might have upload or download with a button. We'll talk about these features in a minute, but that's how you would normally package this up for a customer. We also, in the package, we also provide called something sample application. So Greg maybe will explain a little bit more about the application, but it's an application that uses Bootstrap, and it gives you a whole framework, gives you, the bar where you can put whatever you want. You can have your buttons. The whole framework is created for you. This is just an example. This is an illustration, really, how TransferAgent can be embedded in a web application. But once again, if you have your own written in your favorite web programming language, PHP, JSP, ASP, you would just integrate it into that. But this is an illustration, or you could use this as a framework for your own application if you wish to build something. So before I go any further, I just wanted to show you, we spent quite a bit of time developing documentation for this product. If you go to the deployment guide, you have everything is really outlined, how to use this product, how to deploy it, the quick version. The quick version really tells you what I just did. The more advanced version explains you what all the documents are in there, and then gives you, your configuration options. Every single thing you could possibly do with TransferAgent is very well explained in here. Explains your markup, explains your custom progress transfer fields, explains how to receive list of files after the transfer. All of that is in this document. But now I'm just going to move straight onto my next step. So I already have the FileCatalyst TransferAgent running. So now I'm going to go into my FileCatalyst folder here. That's the one I just unzipped. And I'm going to modify configuration.js. So this is the file that allows you to specify your nodes, a node being a FileCatalyst server. So in this case here, I have to provide information like the remote server, port, username, and password. So in this case, I'm just going to go now into my direct server, and I'm going to create a user in here. I'm going to just call it TA for TransferAgent, password, and this is the directory where all the files that are going to be uploaded from TransferAgent are going to end up in this folder. As you can see, you have full set of permissions there if you notice. So when you're creating your own system, of course, you would lock it down a bit more. Here for the demo, I'm just leaving everything open. So now I have my TransferAgent user, I have my TA user created. So all now I have to do here is specify this information. So my demo, that's the name, that's just a pretty name that the end user will see. The actual host will be host or an IP address. In this case here, I'm running all of localhost, so of course it's localhost. And transfer username is TA, and password is 12345. Okay, minimize this, and now I'm going to hit the upload page here. So I don't have TransferAgent installed here as the end user. So first of all, what the JavaScript is doing is attempting to detect whether TransferAgent is already running or configured on the system. And we'll try that a few times to make sure that there's really nothing running, and in a few seconds it will prompt for the download of the transfer agent. And this is the detection, the auto detection of the transfer agent failed. And here's the initial prompt from the user to download and install the transfer agent. This is where it comes in. So in this case here, I don't have it installed, so I'm just going to click on download. And once again, instructions, there's an installation guide for both Windows and Mac. There's also an installation guide how to operate within the system tray, because the transfer agent attaches itself to the system tray. All of that is outlined to the end user. And once again, all of this is also fairly customizable, so you can change it if there's something and some information you wanna modify here. I'm gonna click on download now, and this saves the file for the transfer agent. And now all I have to do is just run it. So here's my open file prompt from Windows. Accept the terms and conditions, specify my target path, just like any other application that end users are very familiar with to install. Now the transfer agent is starting, and now I have it all in my system tray over here. So the installer actually starts the transfer agent on its own, but now the agent is running over here, and now I can just confirm. I'm getting the prompt. So I mentioned the security prompts that we've did it. This is for, we built these prompts for on purpose. So if somebody has transfer agent already installed, they will have to decide whether the certain website is allowed to use it or not, because ultimately we will be gaining access to the full file system of the transfer. So now you can see here, upload is my upload page is started. I can now browse my local file system, and I'm ready to transfer files as the user. So adding files to my queue. The files are added to the queue over here, and I'll let Greg drive from this point on.
All right, something to note here is that since all of this is built, I should say the defaults are built around Twitter Bootstrap. It's using certain things to do a layout. So right now, because the demo machine we're using has a small screen, everything ends up being stacked. If we were using a much larger monitor, these widgets would be side by side instead of stacked. So as John already showed you, he's added some files to the queue. You can see them in the queue. If you need to modify the queue, you can add or remove them at any point in time. And once your queue is built, you simply need to upload it. As the upload begins, you can see a progress and other information below. The transfer completes, we get a notification, and that's the end. That's all you need to do as an end user to transfer a file using the transfer agent.
All right, so take us through, just show us the download demo, Greg.
All right. So the download is basically the same UI. The difference is the file set that you see as the page loads. So rather than seeing my local file system, I am now viewing any of the files that are on the remote file system. The process is the same after that. You simply add files to the queue, either one at a time or based on selection. Once the queue is built, you simply download the queue. The same thing happens again. Once the file starts, you receive a progress dialog with some information. Now, one thing to note is that although it's not within the scope of today's webinar, all of the information visible below the below the Q is customizable. So if you have, there's about, I think, 20 or 30 different fields that you can choose from that allow you to customize what information your end user sees.
The nice thing we also added is that once the files are downloaded, they by default will go into the downloads folder for the user. But at the same time, after the download is complete, there's that open download location. So if you click on that, Greg, it will actually bring up downloads location here. So the user cannot get confused where they downloaded the files. But by default, they will always go into the downloads folder.
All right.
So that was the upload and the download functionality. Now we'll go through a little bit more advanced features. So let's Greg, maybe walk us through the encryption stuff.
All right. So one important thing to note as we're doing these transfers, you saw John configuring the username and password earlier. And those of you who are familiar with web technologies may be already curious. Where is that all found? And if somebody is looking at their source of the page and they happen to click on configuration, you're going to see right in the remote nodes configuration that it's all available in clear text. So obviously that is not ideal for high security. If you have a low security application or you're using dynamic language to populate the username and password each time the page loads, you may still use the clear text. But we have provided another mechanism for passing credentials using a PGP encrypted message. So the way that works is that once you have your username and password, once you have your account set up, let me just add that. So once you have your account set up and you're ready to generate a message, you can either delete the clear text username and password and remote server, or if you want to leave a red herring up for anybody who happens to be spying on your information, you could leave a red herring as well. And once that's done, we need to provide a PGP message. So we provide a utility that's already deployed. You don't need to publish the link, but it doesn't really matter because anybody having access to the encrypt.html page still cannot reverse engineer any of your credentials. So what happens is once you open encrypt.html, you're given the usual fields. So we need to provide a username, the password, the server, and we're already using the default port 21. We're not using SSL for our connection right now, so we're going to uncheck that.
This SSL must be checked because if you really want to have a true encryption, you have to always use SSL connection. Otherwise, someone could use a Wireshark or a sniffing application to figure out the username and password. But for our demo purposes, we're not using SSL, so we're just leaving it unchecked.
Right. There's a few optional parameters here that we're just going to leave for now. Anybody who has questions about those, once you're demoing the application, you can certainly approach us and we'll answer any of those questions. So once you've filled in the required credentials, you simply generate the parameter string, which pops up a text field full of basically hex. It's a hex string. So you'll see that there's two fields. They're basically identical except one contains an array of strings. So those of you who know JavaScript would recognize this as an array of strings. And then below that, if you happen to need it, is the plain PGP message. In most cases, what you will want is the content from the top box, because that is the content that you need to populate into your configuration. So you replace the existing square braces with the PGP message, save, and once we go back to the application, we'll see that a connection is established. So the PGP message itself contains everything that the transfer agent needs to know in order to make a connection. And then, of course, once connected, you can simply...
Just show us maybe the view source, Greg, so we can see that everything is now encrypted. And
Sure. So going back to the view source, if somebody happens to be snooping around and trying to figure out if there's a username or password here. They open up that configuration.js file, and rather than seeing a username and password, now they simply see this unusable PGP message. And again, you could put some red herrings up here if you wanted to throw people off, but it's not necessary.
Okay. So another way to secure your uploads or your transfers is by not pre-populating username and password on your upload page, but literally just prompt the user for their username and password. That's the most secure way, because then there's no password anywhere going through. The user is prompted for it, and they have to enter it. So to change, to make this behavior work in TransferAgent, here's what you will have to do. You will have to go back to your configuration.js, put your remote server, which is localhost for us. We will now remove this PGP message example. And we'll leave username and password empty, blank. What this will do is that our TransferAgent JavaScript will notice that username and password are empty, and it will prompt the end user, for the credentials before actually doing an upload. So if I just save this over here now, just close these, and now I click on upload. Here's my username and password. Now I'm being asked for it. So here I'm going to enter my user TA and 12345. And if you enter wrong credentials, the user will be reprompted for them once again. So this is something. And now I logged in with my username and password that was created on FileCatalyst direct server, and now I can once again upload files to the system. Once again, with the uploads, I just forgot to mention that you can upload, multiple files like Greg mentioned, but I can also add entire folder structures as well. So here's a folder. I have an example here of a folder, and you can upload an entire folder as well. Oh, oops. So you can the application can prompt the user for username and password if you wish to, give specific username and password to every single uploader on your web page. So it depends on the application. Some of our clients have a generic upload page where everybody uploads to. Some of our users prompt for username and password. Both of these options are possible. And same thing goes for download. It's the same idea will apply. Once again, username and password will be asked for. And now I can log in. And I see the files on the remote server. So that's the automatic filling, automatically prompting for username and password. One more thing I wanted to just go quickly through is sort of all the options that you have in the configuration.js. So some of the things we haven't covered here, I'm just going to go quickly item by item here. There's an option to, instead of making the user browse for remote files on the server, you could create something called a download button. And the download button just accepts in the list of files you want the user to download. So it could be just an individual file, or it could be an array of strings that are files on the server. This is more for if you're going to integrate this into PHP or a web application where you're going to be building dynamic download links, you can build this using this download button function, because you could do it that way. And like this, end user is not confused, because end user just has one button to click to download the content instead of browsing through their remote folder. Some of the other information you can have here, you can modify certain elements. So you saw there was like an email widget, there was a queue widget, there was the list widget. So you can change that. You can also do calls. So let's say after transfer, you could call a JavaScript method, or you could redirect to a URL. This is sort of similar to our other applets we do, but you have all the redirection or calling JavaScript if you need to. You can customize your look and feel with different icon sets. Here are the status fields. Like Greg mentioned that there's over 20 status fields you can display during transfer. So we only show a few basic ones, but there's a lot more other elements you can show while on the progress dialog. The transfer configuration, these are the different options that are actually built into the FileCatalyst protocol. So you can auto zip, so you can create a zip file. You can do progressive transfers, so start sending a file while it's still being built on the disk. You can verify integrity, so do an MD5 checksum after the transfer is done. There's the email notification. There is, how many times retry and how long to wait between each try when you're uploading or downloading. So by default, we will try up to 10 times and wait 3 seconds between each try. Your transfer modes, your resuming is automatically set to true. You have what to do with empty directories, incremental mode. So this is if you want to send different versions. So imagine you send a 3 gig file, and then a portion of that file or just a region of that file has changed. So let's say the last 10 megs. You don't have to re-upload the entire file. We'll just do TransferAgent will do a delta. We'll build a signature file and upload just the changes between these files. So this is something built in as well. And you have your post URL for retrieving file names into your other web applications. So web applications usually need to know what files the user has sent, and this post URL does that. So as you can see, there's lots of options. You can customize all your icons. You can customize your language. Everything's localized, so you can change every single image. Everything you see on the application can be changed. So just to finish things up, because I think we're 5 minutes now over our time almost, let me just show you the email information. So by default, as you see, email notification is set to true, and what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to illustrate that every time someone does an upload, I want to get an email notification arriving to me as an administrator, and I don't wish the end users to see that. It's just something that is pre-programmed and it's ready to go. So I'm going to leave my send email notification as true. I'm going to put in my email address here. And my email body will be here are new files. And I could even set that I wish to get the file list. So I saved that. So this is the first part. So now I have hard-coded email address and body information into the transfer agent. But now I have to also hide the file transfer widget. So to do that, I'm going to go to my upload page. So this is the HTML that is really launching everything. It's just regular HTML5. It uses some common packages like Bootstrap and Font Awesome. These are all standard HTML packages available in the market. But what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to change the email widget. I'm going to hide it. So I think it's just class equals hide, right? Mm-hmm. And once again, this is all documented as well. So, but I just want to show you here an illustration what's possible. So I'm going to minimize that, go back into my web browser, and I click on upload. Oh yeah, let me just refresh one more time here. Okay. So let me enter here my username and password. As you can see, the email widget is gone. It's not visible anymore. And now I'm just going to browse and add some files to that I wish to transfer. And the transfer is complete. So this will automatically now send an email, I believe. I think I'm set up for it. Perhaps not. But this will send out an email to this address with the information I have. So the information arrives. So this is one of the customizations, and everything else is also very customizable, because this is just really JavaScript, HTML, and a bit of CSS. So what's the roadmap for this product? So initial release is now available. You can download it from our download site. It's ready to go. We're going to be working in the next upcoming weeks or months on integrating this into our workflow and webmail applications. So there will be a new file transfer method called TransferAgent. So you can change, instead of using the Java applets or HTML5, you'll also have the TransferAgent as a method for uploading. Maybe a little further down the road, we'll be working on two-way features. So imagine like a double pane where you have a local and a remote file lists, and you'll be able to move files between local and remote, just like sort of like FileZilla does, or Fetch. Then we'll be looking into integrating server-to-server transfer. So instead of having a local file list and a remote file list, you'll have two remote lists, and once again be able to move files between the two remote nodes. So it will be basically like a server-to-server transfer, or FXP. Oh, thank you, Greg. And finally, we'll be also looking to hooking this all up to our central product, so you can monitor and manage all these transfers much better, because everything will be visible through central. So that's really our roadmap for this. If you're interested in a demo for this product, we're exhibiting at a few shows where we'll have the TransferAgent available for a demo. We'll be, at Broadcast India in October. We'll be at OilCom. I'm actually doing a keynote. I'm speaking there at OilCom in Houston in November 6th. And then we'll also have a booth at Content and Communications World, CCW, in New York City on November 12th. So if you're interested to pop by and see the demo for this, we'll be more than happy to show you that. So thank you for watching this. As I mentioned, I will try to answer some questions if we do have some questions in here. Let me just, how come it's so small? Let me just, wow. Okay, so hold on. At this point, we have a number of questions here. I will go them by one, but let me just stop my